Okay. Anyway, Baruch Hashem, I'm glad you were there. So the I want to first of all mention looked into what Harold had mentioned yesterday and the day before. I mentioned about this midrashim about Eldad and Medad, which we were getting into, and it turns out that Harold made us aware of some interesting midrashic sources that are I don't think they're so well known, that Eldad and Medad were actually they were leaders, and they were leaders of different tribes, and they definitely had they had some great merit to them. And what was bothering Harold was, why is it that they should get punished? Did they really sin, or to what extent did they sin? And the whole story is really clouded in mystery, because if you look up their story in I believe it's Parshas Beha'aloscha, where Moshe complained about his, that it was too much for him, and Hashem said you should choose 70 elders. And 70 elders sounds like a very nice idea, except that how many tribes are there? There are 12 tribes. So if each tribe gives 6 elders, it ends up that there's really 6 times 12 is 72. So it's not going to be fair. And if each tribe gives 5 elders, so it'd be 60. So you're going to be missing 10. What did Moshe, let me mute everyone. So Moshe needed to have figure out how to not make certain tribes jealous. Why are some tribes giving more, and sometimes some tribes less? So Moshe Rabbeinu, what he did was, he made a little raffle, and each tribe was told, choose 6 of your greatest righteous and scholarly people. So each tribe chose 6. Now, each of those 6 came to Moshe Rabbeinu, and Moshe Rabbeinu told them, okay, pick out from the raffle a little note. And there were 72 notes in this raffle. 70 of them said, you are going to be a zaken, an elder. You're going to be one of the Shivim Zakenim, one of the 70 elders that are going to carry, so to speak, the burden that Moshe Rabbeinu was carrying. And 2 of the little notes that were in this raffle, they just were blank, which means those 2 people were not chosen by Hashem. So that's how Moshe figured he will work out this raffle. Using the raffle, he'll be able to decide which tribe is going to be eligible for all 6, choosing 6 scholars and righteous people from their tribe, and which tribe is going to only end up with 5, because there's going to be 2 extra, and those 2 are not going to be acceptable by Hashem, accepted as elders. So that's what happened. Now, in the meantime, the story is not so clear, but Eldad and Medad chose not to pick out their notes. And so in the end, there were 70 elders with no problems, because 2 people didn't show up, basically, Eldad and Medad. Now, so it sounds like maybe Eldad and Medad were maybe the ones that weren't chosen. But that doesn't work out, because they ended up prophesizing back in the camp without being with Moshe Rabbeinu. In other words, it seems like they were on a very high level. So the story, it doesn't really clarify. So what ended up happening? Which 2 people didn't end up getting chosen? Was it Eldad and Medad were they really meant to be in that group? They weren't meant to be in the group. So However you learn it, it's definitely shrouded in mystery. So and then you have the continuation of that story, which is our Gemara, where these two people ended up being mute because something to do with the fact that maybe they had repeated this prophecy, which they weren't really supposed to. So I looked into it. I found a very beautiful insight from a Rosh Kollel in Eretz Yisrael. His name is Rabbi Pinchas Friedman. He's written many Sfarim. He's written many books called the Shvilei Pinchas, and I've quoted stuff from him before. He's a very great scholarly author, and he explains it as follows, based on numerous sources. He says that the story is that Eldad and Medad were actually meant to be the elders, but they felt bad that if they become the elders, then two people are going to lose out, and it's going to be an embarrassment. So they decided that let's not go, and this way people will think that we are not the ones who are we're not eligible for being the elders because we're not up to par, we're not in that league. And so they figured they'll be humble, and this way the other two people will not be embarrassed. So they did this as an act of humility. However, so what happened? So according to this, if you understand it this way, what happened was they ended up not going. So the 70 elders that ended up going, two of them maybe were not 100% fit to be in the category of elders, but there was no one else. So they ended up going and being part of the elders that went. And Eldad and Medad stayed back. This way they minimized the embarrassment. They removed the embarrassment from those two people. Now, Hashem decided that, these people are very holy. So he gave them this prophecy that he let them prophesize. And it turned out that their prophecy was a very, it was a sad prophecy, but it was a prophecy that Moshe is going to die and Yeshua is going to take over. Now, that prophecy, Yeshua couldn't, did not sit well with Yeshua. And Yeshua felt that maybe they're false prophets. Because why would Hashem give them prophecy? And everyone thought that maybe they're false prophets, because if they were real prophets, they should have been from the 70. Right? Those are the prophets that Hashem wants them to be prophets together with Moshe. And these guys are these two people were not fit. And so if they're back in the camp, they are false prophets. So Yeshua felt that they did not deserve, they deserved to be imprisoned or punished because they're false prophets. Now, Moshe understood that the 70 prophets were 70 prophets that he had given from his light and shared it with these other 70 people. But he said the fact that there's other people that are prophesying is not, it's not necessarily a proof that they're false prophets. So Moshe didn't want to kill them or punish them or put them imprison them. And in the end, it ended up that they were right. So they were prophesying the truth that Moshe is going to pass away and Yeshua is going to lead the Jewish people. So the reason why they didn't take their notes from the raffle was not because they were nervous about themselves that they would get the blank paper. They were nervous that they would cause embarrassment to someone who is going to get the blank paper. So therefore, they didn't go. Now, the only problem that they did, so really they were very righteous, very holy people. The only problem is that they got this prophecy. Now, prophecy, normally you're supposed to reveal a prophecy, as David told us. Like, why are they punished? They revealed the prophecy that Moshe is going to die and Yeshua is going to take over. So that's part of prophecy generally, is that you're supposed to reveal it. But the thing is that the Rambam writes that prophecy sometimes is meant just for the individual himself. And sometimes the prophecy, but many times the prophecy is meant to tell over to everyone. Now, these two great people, Eldad and Medad, they thought to themselves, they said, why would Hashem give us this prophecy for ourselves? This is not like an exciting thing for us to hear. It must be that it's meant for us to reveal this to the community. So they use their process of logic that, to figure out, was this a prophecy that was meant to be revealed, or was it a prophecy that was meant to be concealed? So they revealed this prophecy, and because they assumed that it's not meant for it to be concealed. And what they did was not necessarily wrong, except for the fact that they caused a chilul Hashem. What was the chilul Hashem? The chilul Hashem that they caused was the fact that they are prophesizing, and it looks like they're false prophets. And by doing that, they were causing this desecration of God's name. So because they did this act that caused the desecration of God's name, that was the reason, again, everything they did seemed very righteous. But the fact that they revealed this prophecy, it caused in other words, all of their actions ended up in the end, it ended up being like a chilul Hashem, because everyone thought of them as if they're sinners, and public sinners, and knowledgeable sinners, and so on. It made a chilul Hashem. So the chilul Hashem that it caused, it was the reason why they would, the reason why they ended up becoming mute, because of this chilul Hashem that they caused. So this is basically just summarizing what the it's a long article that he has, but basically that because of the chilul Hashem that they caused, that was the reason why they ended up being mute. Now, ultimately, Rebbe davened for them that they should be healed because Rebbe realized that their Torah study was in such a high, he realized that they were serious, sincere people. And by being sincere and serious in their learning, they were Mekadesh Hashem. They were able to sanctify God's name. So by sanctifying God's name, they rectified the chilul Hashem that they had originally caused. And that's why Rebbe begged Hashem for mercy that they should be healed. So that's that sort of like summarizes this big article that's written that he writes about this. So what comes out is that even though what they did was not wrong, but it ended up causing some level of chilul Hashem, at least on in their level. They ended up causing this chilul Hashem, and so for them, this was considered something wrong, and that's why it caused that they should be considered, that they should need to be, that they would be mute, and ultimately they were healed because of they rectified their sin. So this is a very nice. He brings a lot of sources for this, but that's the summary and of this article. So I hope that somewhat answers your question, Harold.
Yes.
Yes, Mordechai.
Yeah, this kind of reminds me of, about how you have the 12 tribes and the 70 elders not working out evenly. Kind of reminds me that there's that article about when the Rabbi Rashab instituted Mashiach Suda. It says that there were 18 tables and a certain number of people. And if you, the number of people, I forget what it was, but it wasn't divisible by 18. And of course, the Rebbe Rashab didn't send anybody away, but I'm just saying that the things don't necessarily always work, turn out evenly.
Wait, say that again. So there were 18 tables, and how many people?
I forget the number of people. It was like a couple hundred, but it was a number that was not I did the math. It was not divisible by 18.
Right. Okay. Right. Anyway, so that's a very interesting way of explaining. At least he comes up with a method of explaining that story, which is gives a much more clarity to the story. Okay, so now we're going back to the Gemara that we learned yesterday. The Gemara had mentioned that we were talking about a person who is lame and a person who's lame in one foot, and then the Gemara talked about someone who is amputee, and what came out from this was that someone who's lame in one foot was exempt from Re'iyah because it says regalim. Regalim means feet, but which means you need to have two. You need to be able to use 2 feet, and therefore, if someone is lame, he is exempt. But then the Gemara says, "What do you mean? I thought regalim is exempting ba'alei kabin." Ba'alei kabin means someone who's an amputee and has a wooden foot. Yes, Ben.
They're using here, I see several words in Hebrew, which each one has several meanings.
Right.
But when they say regalim, it does not mean feet. It's spelled the same way. So without nikud, you can read it any way you want. But once there is nikud, it has a certain meaning.
What does it mean, regalim?
Regalim is like muadim.
Mm-hmm.
So, and also it's like aliyah la regel. When you're going to the holidays, on the holidays, it
Right.
does not mean feet. The same with pa'am, pe'amim. Pa'am has about 7-8 meanings.
Mm-hmm.
It has a musical beat, a heartbeat. It has footsteps. It has all kind of meanings. So it depends how you spell it and how you use it in the sentence. So you can give it other meanings like they do, which is very smart, and you can play with it, but it doesn't mean that that's what it means. It can be read that way. So
good point. So there's 2 things. Number one is sometimes the Gemara will darshan based on the fact that the Torah is written without the vowels.
Right.
And so the Gemara has the license,
but the sentence usually gives it the meaning.
Right. Okay. But the second thing that I'll tell you is that the commentaries here mention that that entire verse is extra. And because of that, there's reason to expound on those words. So it gives you even a bigger license to derive laws, because the entire verse is really extra.
Yeah.
So that's basically why. So it's a good point that you're making, that in other words, if it really doesn't fit in, why are we expounding on it? But the answer is because the entire verse really is an extra verse. So therefore there's reason to expound.
And they did it here already with 3 words at least. Re'iyah, which can have another meaning depending how you spell it. I mean the nikud. And pe'amim.
Well, yilamedu. Yilamedu.
That's a 4th one, yeah. So
right.
But saying that that's what it means but saying that's what it means is incorrect. Like saying that regalim means feet is incorrect. Reglaim means feet.
Okay, fine. The root of that word means
the
feet.
Root is correct, yeah.
Okay. The root of that word means feet. Okay. The Gemara had said that we need that word regalim to teach us a law about baalei kabin, about people who have a wood foot. That, in other words, they're amputee, that they carved out, they hollowed out a piece of wood, put the person's remaining leg into that wood, and that wood became the person's foot. And the Gemara tells us that we see from a certain verse, from this verse, the Gemara thinks that it's from this verse, that they should be exempt of baalei kabin, that a baal kabin is exempt, meaning this person who's an amputee, but he has a wooden foot, he's exempt from oila regel. So the Gemara is saying you can't use it if a person has the foot, but he's just lame, that maybe he should be obligated in being oila regel and going up to the Beis HaMikdash. Someone who's amputee, he's the one who's exempt. So the Gemara answers no, that it's not learned from this verse. That's learned from another verse. A different verse teaches us that an amputee is exempt. That's pe'amim, from the word pe'amim, that excludes an amputee. And the Gemara brings a proof that pe'amim sometimes means like footsteps. And the Gemara then expounds.
So a prosthesis still makes a noise as a foot. It does the pe'amim.
So maybe it makes noise, but the Gemara understands
It's like when they say later, about the woman's steps. What are you hearing? Probably the heels. So this foot makes the same noise, makes a noise of a step, The prosthesis makes a step. But anyhow,
so that's an interesting point. The Gemara brings that second pasuk, and what I mentioned yesterday was that the second pasuk tells us that we see the term pe'amim with shoes, and being that pe'amim means with shoes, in this wooden foot, you're not going to put a shoe. You don't put a shoe on, so that person would be exempt. In other words, he's exempt from the pe'amim source. For the fact that it says pe'amim, it would be excluding someone with
a prosthesis,
with that would wear shoes. So that's how we're going to know to exclude a baalei kabin, someone who's an amputee. I think that's the pshat. Let me just a second. Yeah, that is the pshat. Yes. So it's so we're learning in the end. We're learning that regalim means to exclude a lame person, and pe'amim means to exclude a amputee. Okay, let me read it inside, just to make it more. Maybe we'll make it a little more clear. Amar Reb Tanchum. Reb Tanchum says. So let me tell you where we're up to. We're starting from. It's really like the middle of the page. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, maybe 33 lines from the top of the page. We're on 3A in Chagiga, 3A, 30, maybe about 33 lines from the top of the page. Amar Reb Tanchum says, Chiger beraglei achas pater ben ha're'iyah, a person who's lame in one foot is exempt from re'iyah, and he's exempt from going to the Beis HaMikdash to be oila regel for the holidays. Shenemar, as it says, regalim, and this whole entire verse is really extra, and he expounds on the word regalim to mean that it has to be that you're walking with your feet, and if someone doesn't have regalim, he's not using both of his feet. In other words, one of them he's lame, so he would be exempt from being oila regel, because one of his feet is not exactly being used, so it's not exactly regalim, so he is exempt from being Oila Regel, from going to the Beis Hamikdash 3 times a year. The Gemara asks, that should exclude someone who's an amputee and he has a kab, which means some type of a piece of wood that's placed on his foot, on his leg to take it to be a prosthetics for his missing foot. So that is excluding a bali kabin. So that word is used to exclude a bali kabin, an amputee. So how can you tell me that it's excluding someone who's lame? And the Gemara answers no. That law that a bali kabin, that an amputee is exempt, mi pa'amim nafka. That is derived from pa'amim. That is, you can expound from the word, you could understand from the word pa'amim that will exclude someone who is an amputee. The Tanya, because we learned in a brisa pa'amim, it says 3 pa'amim, 3 times a year. Ein pa'amim ella raglayim. Pa'amim means raglayim. It means footsteps, or person who has feet. It means pa'amim, ein pa'amim ella raglayim. V'chein oimer tirmasena rogel. It says in a pasuk in Yeshaya, tirmasena rogel, the feet, the foot will step or trample on it. Ragle ani, the feet of a poor person. Ha'ame dalim, the feet of a poverty-stricken person. So basically, it uses this pasuk to mean feet. You see in this pasuk that pa'ame means something to do with feet, and then it brings another pasuk, and it also says, "Mayofu pa'amayech bana olim bas nediv." How beautiful are your feet, or your footsteps in shoes, daughter of Nediv. Now, I did look it up, Ezra, the Nediv, and in Hallel, Nediv, there are different commentaries over there. The Seforno says Nediv is like I said, that Nediv means contributor, Bali Tzedakah. But the other commentaries they don't mention prince, they mention like a king even. But it means like a noble, someone dignitary, I guess. So your explanation is correct as well. That Nediv means a noble, and so here, how beautiful are your ne'olim, your shoes? How beautiful are your footsteps, bana olim, in shoes, bas Nediv, daughter of the noble, of the donor, as I translated it. Now, what does this mean? What this means?
Rabbi, in the Sefaria, it says Nadiv they meant Avraham Avinu.
Yeah, that's the next paragraph.
Yeah. Okay.
So what do we see from this? This verse is teaching us that if you want to exclude someone from the word pe'amim, it would make sense to use that word to exclude someone who's not going to wear shoes, because pa'amim seems to go together with shoes. So as Rashi says, pa'amayach bana olim, Rashi says, alma babali min olim shaychi pa'amim. Rashi basically clarifies that this is the meaning, that it must be talking about someone with shoes, and therefore, since it says by being oila regel, this same word, so it would exclude someone that is not going to wear shoes, and that would be this person who's an amputee. So he has a wooden foot, but he's not going to wear a shoe, and so he would be excluded from. In other words, that pasuk would exclude this amputee from being oila regel. Now, I did want to get back. Also, Ezra had asked me before about this, about the case of the person who is who's deaf, but he has a hearing aid. What would be, and also about someone who's mute, someone deaf that has a hearing aid, what would be with regard to him in shul? Would you be able to do chazaras hashatz? Would you be able to repeat the Shemona Esrei based on the fact that he does hear and answers Amen. He's not hearing exactly your voice. He's hearing his hearing aid that's making a microphone sound to his ear. But would that be good enough to be able to count him in a minyan? So it's definitely an interesting question. It seems that maybe it's fine. Seems that should be okay. Again, because it's debatable. What exactly do you need to do? Do you need to hear every single word in order to make the bracha not a bracha levatala, or is it enough that you're answering Amen and you're hearing, you know what he's saying, basically. You're going along with him. It happens to be you're hearing the sound of a microphone, but you know that that's what he's saying. You're following along. So logically, it would seem that should be fine. And with regard to the other case where a person is mute, but they could still teach. So we wanted to exclude them from the Manu Yelamedu, and Ezra had asked about what would be nowadays that they could teach, because you could teach with sign language, or you could teach with maybe a computer and press buttons, and it would it would say the words you want to say. So it would seem that such a mute person would be obligated in Hakel because he's able to teach. It's only excluding someone who is unable to teach. Yilman Yilamedu. But if he could teach now, like nowadays, such people would seemingly be obligated. The whole exemption is only because they can't teach. If they could teach, they would seem to be obligated. So that's I think to answer some of the questions that were asked, I think we sort of covered now the things that we left up in the air. Okay, so now getting back to our Gemara, so we now excluded from Hakel, from going to the Beis Hamikdash, we excluded a person who's lame and a person who's an amputee. And now the Gemara takes that same pasuk and it says, and what does it really mean, Bas Nadiv? Who is that Bas Nadiv that it's referring to? The daughter of this generous person or this noble person? Who is it referring to? My Darash Rava Darshans, he expounds on this verse. My Dechsiv, Mayafu Pa'mayech Banu Bas Nadiv. What does it mean? It's a very poetic verse. Of course, it's in Shir Hashirim. It says, how beautiful are your footsteps in shoes, Bas Nadiv, daughter of the noble. So it's obviously referring to the Jewish people. So it's calling them that something to do with their footsteps and something to do with them being the daughter. The Jewish people are called a daughter in a general sense. We are called the daughter of a noble. So it says, "Kaman no'in raglein shel Yisrael." How beautiful are the feet of the Jewish people, b'sha'a sha'oilin laregel, at the time when we go up to be for the holidays to the Beis Hamikdash. So the way it's darshaning the pasuk, this is a Rashi somewhere else mentions that the word bana olim we're using to imply, to hint to aliyah. Bana olim meaning the aliyah, the going up to the Beis Hamikdash. So we're darshaning to mean that how beautiful are the footsteps of the Yidden, the feet of the footsteps of the Yidden when they go to be Oila Regel, Bas Nadiv, the daughter of the generous person or the noble person, Bito Shel Avram Avinu, Shenikra Nadiv, the daughter of Avram was called Nadiv. Shenem, as it says, Nadive Amim Nasafu, the nobles of the nations have gathered. Elokei Avram, the nation of the God of Avram. So when it refers to the noble, we are referring to Avraham. So it says Elokei Avram lo Elokei Yitzchok v'Yaakov. It's saying the God of Abraham, but not the God of Yitzchok and Yaakov. Ella Elokei Avram sheyatchila legerim. What it means is Abraham was the first Nadiv. He was the first of all the Gerim, and therefore it's referring to him, and it doesn't mention Yitzchok and Yaakov. So it mentions it's his nation, Abraham, being that he was the first. And what does it mean to the Gerim? He came to this Beis Hamikdash as the first one that would that came there when he was going to sacrifice his son Yitzchok. So being that he was the first to be so committed and devoted to Hashem, so he was the first, and we follow that by us going to be Oile Regel when we leave our houses and just leave it. Who knows what's going to happen, and we just take off. So, which really you could say it refers to Abraham also taking off from Haran, or for when Hashem told him leave Haran and go to Eretz Yisrael, and just leaving everything behind, so to speak. Like he might have had things that he wanted to wait to finish, and he was just, Hashem told him to leave, and he got up and left. But specifically, it's referring to the going to the actual place of the Beis Hamikdash, because we're sort of comparing that to the Jewish people doing the same thing, that we're going there, and even though we're not sacrificing Chas v'Shalom, we're not doing this Mesiras Nefesh that he did, but we are doing a level of Mesiras Nefesh of sacrificing, anything that's up in the air, and we're just leaving it and hoping for the best. And so we are called the Bas Nediv. We are following in Abraham's footsteps. We are the daughter of Abraham Avinu.
Rabbi?
Yes.
I can understand it in an additional way.
Sure.
When they say Avraham haya tchila lagerim, it doesn't say he was the first ger. He was the beginning for the gerim, meaning he was converting people. He was creating gerim. He was the beginning of the gerim. He was not the first. Otherwise, they would say a ger harishon.
I like it.
Tchila is just the beginning.
Okay, very good.
Yeah, because he never believed in the statues. So
he was also the first.
He didn't convert.
Well,
he told his father, the statues are not working. Look at him. He broke the other statues, or whatever it is, He never believed in statues. His father did. He believed in God, in a one God. So he was the beginning, and he converted people to that idea.
I don't think you have to knock the other point. In other words,
I'm not knocking it. I'm saying
I'll tell you why. Yeah, I hear what you're saying, but you're saying two things. You're saying number one is Tchila Legerim is that he was the beginning to bring Gerim.
Yeah,
that's a good point. And then you said another point, that he wasn't Megayer because he never believed in anything else.
No, I said he himself was not a ger.
Was not a ger because he never believed in idols. Right. So on that second point, it's not as simple as you make it, and I'll tell you why. There's midrashim that say that he looked at the sun and said, maybe you're the God, but then he saw, well, the sun sets at night. Well, looked at the moon. No, that can't be. So he sort of came to the realization that it was Hashem. And because he came to the realization, and there's also contradictory midrashic statements if what age he was. Was he age 3? Was he age 5? Was he age 40? Was he age 40? Yeah. Like the different midrashic statements. So being that he might have had gone through different stages of what he thought until he came to the final realization that it's the Eibishter, you could call that a ger. He became, because he didn't come from
who decided that he converted?
Well, that's what I'm saying. But the concept of ger is not necessarily wrong. But I still like your pshat about the tchila legerim, that he's the first one to bring gerim. Okay, very good, good point. Okay, so we've just concluded. And Ezra, the reason I kept translating the Nediv the way I did was because Rashi seems to constantly say it over here. Al Shem Shenodvoi Liboy, his heart like donated, And the next Rashi as well, the Gerim are menadev. They are like contributing. They're contributing from the nations to accept the acceptance of mitzvah. So it's sort of like as the it seems like that's how Rashi is expounding on it using that translation. But the other translation is also correct for sure. There's other commentaries that use that term, div, meaning noble. Okay, so the Gemara continues and says, Amar Rav Kahana. Rav Kahana says, Darash Rav Nasan bar Menyumi mishum Rav Tanchum. Rav Nasan bar Menyumi says in the name of Rav Tanchum, Mai dechsiv v'habar rekin by mayim. This is a very famous Gemara that's actually the Gemara is continuing with Rav Tanchum's teachings. But this statement is a well-known statement. It's based on Rashi brings it that what does it mean when it says about the pit that Yosef, and look at how divine providence has it that this is this week's parsha where Yosef is thrown into the pit, and here we're learning it right now, the story of the pit that he's thrown into. It says, what does it mean? V'habar reik ein bo mayim. The pit is empty; it doesn't have any water in it. Mamashma shenemar v'habar reik. This from the fact that it says v'habar reik that the pit was empty. Isn't that understood? Eini yodea she'ein bo mayim. Don't I know that there is no water in this pit? In other words, it says it's empty, right? So the Gemara answers, Elamayim ein boy, avon nechoshim v'akrabim yeshbo. That it means to tell us that although there was no water, but it's implying something. Why is it saying there's no water? It was empty. It means that the pit was empty from water, from big things, but it did have snakes and scorpions. Now, the Ramban over there does, mention that obviously the brothers did not know that it had snakes and scorpions in it. Otherwise, Reuven would not have said, "Let's throw him into the pit in order to save him," because if he knew that it had snakes and scorpions in it, it would have been just similar to killing him as well. So the way the Ramban learns is that that he didn't know, but there is an Or HaChaim that seems to say another pshat that he did know, and that which is an interesting Or HaChaim. The Or HaChaim says that the brothers had two choices. They could have killed him. They felt that he was deserving of the death penalty. But they also felt that maybe they should let Hashem decide if he deserves to die. So they said, if we kill him, Hashem gave humans free choice. Animals don't really have free choice. So they figured if we kill him, it's not going to prove that he really deserved the death penalty. But if we throw him into the pit, then that will prove that he deserved the death penalty. It's very interesting, Or HaChaim. So he says that because we won't really know if we're right. If we kill him, better we should throw him into the pit and let Hashem. If Hashem kills him, then it's then it was meant that he was supposed to die. So the way the Or HaChaim seems to be learning is that the brothers knew that this was that there was snakes and scorpions. Again, the Ramban seems to learn that obviously they didn't know, but I think the Or HaChaim seems to say that they did know. Yes, Ezra.
What's the connection between the previous
Gemara and this?
Yeah.
So it seems that it's just Rav Tanchum saying three things. In other words, the first two things were connected to people being obligated in Hakel or Re'iyah, being obligated in Re'iyah, and here in other words, the first thing was Hakel, the second thing was the law of going to the Beis Hamikdash, and now comes another statement of Reb Tanchum. So that's what it seems to be the connection. There is a vart on this famous vart about Vahabar Reikin by Mayim, that it's telling us an interesting insight into life, that when Mayim refers to Torah, that if your mind is empty and you don't have Torah in it, don't think that it's just okay. So it's empty and it's pure, and I'm going to learn and I'll get some Torah in it, and it's fine. There's no such thing. If the bar is reik ein by mayim, if it doesn't have Torah, then nechashim v'akravim yeshboy. Then it definitely has snakes and scorpions. There's no middle ground. There's no just situation where it's empty. If it doesn't have good, holy, pure stuff, it's going to be filled with schmutz. So you got to make sure to fill your mind with Torah, and that's the spiritual meaning of spiritual pshat of this Gemara, is that v'habod reik ein by mayim, but nechashim v'akravim yeshbo. If it doesn't have water, it's going to have nechashim v'akravim. Therefore, a person should make sure constantly to always fill their mind with good spiritual ruchnius and yanim Torah and stories, inspirational stories, and so on. Otherwise your mind will be filled with nechashim and akravim. Okay, so let's continue to the next piece over here. Tano Rabbanan, the rabbis learned Ma'aseh b'Reb Yochanan ben Broika, Rabbi Elazar. Yes.
I'm sorry, but I see that the question that Ezra asked, and I don't understand it either. We are continuing now, but are we continuing in the same idea of the Shalosh Regalim? Shloshita Regalim.
So
we're
the
talking
next
about
Gemara,
Re'iyah and Shmiya and
Hakel,
learning.
right?
What has that to do with all of that?
So again, what I said was that once we brought two statements from this rabbi, we brought a third statement of his.
I see.
That
has nothing to do with the subject we are on.
Which is not necessarily connected. Now, in Torah, everything is connected. But everything is connected somehow. But at least in a revealed way, the simple understanding why the Gemara brings it here is because of the name, because it's Reb Tanchum. So we're just bringing another statement from him.
We'll understand the way he thinks.
Not necessarily. Just the Gemara felt that once. In other words, the Gemara is really a compilation of the rabbis' discussions. So imagine you're talking to someone and you tell them a good vart. So when you say it, you know who says this vart? It was said by Rabbi Akiva Eger. Okay, you say
and also
someone else tells you, you know what? I have another vart from Rabbi Akiva Eger. So that's how these discussions here. Rav Nosson Bar Yumi, he said the name of Reb Tanchum. Something along those lines. Okay. So the next Gemara says, Tano Rabbanon Ma'aseh Reb Yochanan ben Broika, Rabbi Elazar Chisma. So there's a story with Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Elazar. Shaholchu lahakbil pnei Rabbi Yeshua b'Pekiyin. They went to be makabel pnei Rabbi. They went to visit to greet their Rebbe. Pnei Rabbi Yeshua b'Pekiyin. They went to visit this Rabbi Yeshua of Pekiyin, and he was the head of a bezdin over there, or yeshiva there. So they went to visit him. Now, Amar Lahem, so Rabbi Yeshua told them, Ma chidush haya beis medrash haya. What was what innovative thought did they come up with in the beis medrash today? So the two rabbis said, Amrullah, they said, Talmidecha anu, we are your disciples, and Umeimecha anu shaisim, and we drink your waters. And meaning that we came to listen, we came to hear, we didn't come to tell you stuff, we came to hear from you. So I should mention that Rashi says that lahakpil panav is it was Yom Tov, and there's a mitzvah to be mechabed rabbi, to go visit your Rebbe, to honor your Rebbe by visiting him on Yom Tov. So they went, this was a Yom Tov, and they went and they told him, listen, we're your students, and we came, we didn't come to, we should, Rashi says, we shouldn't be speaking before you. So he said to them, Ramalahem, Afal Pikain, nevertheless, it's impossible that you were in the base medrash and you didn't come up with some idea, some thought didn't come to your mind. You must have had some some thought that came to your mind that was discussed, some innovative, novel thought. So he said, Shabbos Shalmi Haisa, whose week was it to lecture? Which basically, if you remember from the Gemara Brachas, we learned in Brachas that Rabbi Gamliel was kicked out, and Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah was appointed to be the Rosh Hashiva. And then they felt bad for Rabbi Gamliel, and so they decided that Rabbi Gamliel would be 3 weeks, and Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah would be 1 week. And so that's why there's a question here: whose week is it? And so it says Shabbos Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. So they answered him, it was the Shabbos of Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. What was his discussion, his teaching today? So Amrullah b'Parshas Hakel, he spoke about Hakel, and as we mentioned, that Hakel was the mitzvah this year actually, and it's the mitzvah of the king. After the first day of Sukkot, he would stand on a platform, the Azara, and they would teach read from Dvarim, not the whole Dvarim, but he jumped around in Dvarim. There were certain paragraphs that Shema, he would until Shema, Shemaya, he would speak about the Klalas, Brachas and Klalas, the Parshas HaMelech, all different paragraphs that he had to read in order for the Hakel. And so the Gemara says, so he was talking about Hakel. That's what Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah was teaching. Umad Darashba. And so what did he discuss about Hakel? So it says, Hakel esom hanoshim v'hanoshim v'ata. He explained the pasuk that it says, gather the people, men, women, and children. Im hanoshim boyim lilmaid. He said, if the men come to learn, noshim bois lishmaya, the women come to hear. Now, what does that mean? The men come to learn, and the women come to hear. Don't they both come? They both understand things. They both come. So why would you say the men come to learn, and the women come to hear? So the thing is that the women are really exempt from learning Torah. They don't have the same mitzvah of Talmud Torah, but they do need to come to know the laws that are applicable to them, or to have inspiration, so to keep the laws. So therefore, their coming is not for the mitzvah of learning, it's for the mitzvah of hearing to know what to do. The men come to actually learn because of the mitzvah of Limud Torah. And so the men are coming to learn, and the women come to hear. In fact, Tosfos over here says that the women come to hear because he doesn't hold like Ben Azai that says that a person's obligated to teach his daughter Torah, and he held that a woman is exempt from learning Torah. Ben Azai seemed to feel that they're obligated in learning Torah, but this opinion felt that Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah felt they're not, and therefore he said that they are coming to Lishmaya just to hear. Half Lama Boyin, but his main question is, so what are the children coming for? What do you bring children? Who want, children are they make noise and who knows what. So the Gemara answers, Litein schar lemaviehem. This gives a reward to those that bring them, and which is an interesting discussion about bringing children to shul. Is it appropriate to bring children to shul? It would seem that they are going to interrupt. Taisus over here says v'alzeh samchu. On this they rely lahavi katanim bebeis hakneses. If you see the bottom Taisus over here, it says an interesting thing, something that's debated a lot in shuls. Is it appropriate to bring the young children to shul? So Taisus says from here, this is the source that they brought them to Hakel, and it gives merit, reward to those who bring them. So this sounds like it's a positive thing that to bring them to shul. In any event, it's obviously more than just this Taisus over here. There's a lot to discuss, but let's just continue. So Amar Lahem Margolis Taiva Haisa. So Rabbi Yoshua told these two rabbis, Rabbi Yochanan ben Broika and Rabbi Elazar Chisma. So Rabbi Yoshua told them, he says, Margolis Taiva Haisa biyadchem. You had this precious diamond in your hands, uvikashtem la'abda mimeni, and you wanted to hide it from me and conceal it from me. So, in other words, he has such a beautiful Dvar Torah, and then he has, and then he brings another vart of Rebbe Elazar ben Azariah, v'oy darash, in another drasha that he another pasuk he expounded upon. As Hashem hamarta hayoim, you have praised Hashem today. Hashem ha'amircha hayoim, and Hashem has praised you today. So, so there's two psukim. As Hashem ha'amarta hayoim, Hashem ha'amircha hayoim. These two psukim, and the Gemara expounds, or I should say, Rebbe Elazar ben Azariah expounds. So what was Hashem saying? What was happening here? What is the meaning of these two verses? So it says Hashem told the Yidden, "Atem asisuni chativa achas ba'olam." You have made me a chativa, which chaytev generally means chopping wood. So you have, but it basically means that something unique, that something that's like singled out, chopped. You have made me something unique, something extraordinary. You have made me a chativa achas ba'ilam, something extraordinary in the world. And I will make you something extraordinary unique in the world. And what does that mean? You have made me unique, because it says Hashem Hashem is one. Hashem is our God. Hashem is one. And I'll make you unique in unique praise, as it says. And in this, we turn the page to 3b. Who is like your nation? Who is like the nation Israel, one nation on the earth. So basically, Hashem praises the Jewish people, and we praise Hashem, to be continued. Sei gesund, everyone. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Have a good day, everybody.